Having fairly limited or low income simply doesn't support being ill and or disabled. So people that are not only ill and disabled but are fighting for, and pining for the appropriate things, medication, proper food, mobility equipment, surgery costs, people that are pining for those things when they're already actively ill are, of course, much more disabled than they could be by the fact that they can't access a lot of what they need. And so that is why people like us don't or can't have much of a voice. So you don't necessarily even see or hear from people like that in, the media and social media. I mean, we don't talk enough about people who are much more ill and disabled than they should be because they can't get their basics. Here in Canada, it's implied, or it is technically a free system, but this free system excludes a lot of things that people who are chronically ill and disabled need. And if you can get coverage for some of this stuff, it's a lot of legwork, a lot of forms, a lot of waiting, to get it, which is better than nothing, of course. But what's worse is that a lot of medications, especially for people like me who have rare and complex disease, a lot of the better medications that we need are not covered. My pain medicine, which is a better one, I have to pay for that one. And my husband and I mean, we don't live together, but we're still friends, and we still sometimes share costs, and he helps me. He struggles, and he took on a part-time job to help me more, even though he has mild chronic fatigue himself, to try and better afford some of my medications. And not all of my medications are covered. A lot of the medications that are covered are, the sort of cheaper, more crappy forms of things, and the more basic kinds of medications oftentimes. Or sometimes you can apply for coverage if a specialist, gives the authority. But the problem is when it comes to rare disease, like rare complex disease, a lot of specialists gaslight and won't, do the special authority, especially, when it comes to Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. That happens a lot, where they say, oh, you don't need that. And they gatekeep. They gatekeep and gatekeep, and it's exhausting. So when you are low income, having to deal with all the gatekeeping because you're pining to try and get some of what you need covered because you can't afford to pay out of pocket for it, that's exhausting, and that drains energy. And then those people, you don't hear from those people because they're not thriving. They're surviving and pining and using their energy pining for, to get what they need. And they're not, going on trips and doing extracurricular things that are fun. Like, they're tired, they're broke. Oftentimes when we're spending what little money we have on special foods and medications and bracing, and we don't have anything left over. And I feel so bad about having to do that when I have, a couple of kids, when I have my sons, because I'd love to give them so much more. And I feel bad that I can't, because it has to go to things that I need. I can't do it more often. I mean, I try to buy the foods they love, and make sure they get their allowance, even though it is really hard for me to part with anything when my diet is the way it is and my medication needs are the way they are. But big things like surgery and, you know, mobility equipment like a wheelchair, power chair, was really lucky. I had some help to get a used power chair and I had got a really good deal on it. So that was a godsend. But I mean, I've had to fight for everything that I have that I and I mean, I might have a more than somebody else. There's a lot of people who desperately need mobility equipment and proper bed and proper housing and can't. So people like forget. They see like people that are privileged, you know, not I'm not trying to be divisive about, you know, disabled and ill people in poverty versus disabled and ill people with more privilege. I'm not trying to divide us, but you know, it is so much easier when you do have privilege when you are ill, you know. Obviously healthcare costs money and being sick and disabled costs a lot more money than being able-bodied. And the irony of that, of course, is that a sick and disabled person is less able to work. So it's kind of a question of, you know, is your family well off and can they help you out, or do you have a good spouse? And then there's the whole other thing about being treated like you're a burden and caregiving and all that kind of stuff. But the entire system, like if the entire system was turned around to empower ill and disabled people to better fund, you know, more more thorough treatments that can help really remiss the sickness. But I mean, remissing the sickness isn't profitable, to put a sickness into remission. But what if it is? Because you still need to take medication to put something into remission or have it be mild enough that you can go back to work and do things you love a lot, or a bit at least. I mean, being able to do that, being empowered to do that would allow disabled people to contribute to society and the economy more. And I'm not trying to make anyone feel bad, including myself, like, oh, you know, you're just surviving, you're not contributing. But it's not our fault. It's not these people's faults that they can't, you know, contribute more. And to put somebody down when they're already, you know, they want to contribute, they like to be more well so that they can, but they're inhibited by all their energy is going to surviving. That's not their fault. That's the fault of the system. That's how the system is set up. And it shouldn't be set up that way. If it was set up to empower disabled and ill people to optimize their functionality, for the healthcare systems to allow more testing, more thorough, you know, treatments of ailments. You know, there's a lot going on with a chronically ill person that is not actually treated, especially when we're talking about low tier basic medicine, like the medicine that is offered in Canada. It's just drugs. It's just drugs to treat the symptoms. It's not treating the underlying problems. It's not treating what might be a chronic infection, what might be some kind of a hidden autoimmune disorder, what might be a dysfunction, you know, a functional disorder in the gut. Like, they're not treating these things, and then people get sicker and more weak and they can't do physio and they can't, you know, they can barely survive, and they are sicker than ever and pining for their basic needs. And you don't, you know, these people deserve to be heard. These people deserve to be acknowledged, you know, and respected for who they are. And everyone deserves that. I know that sounds a bit cheesy, but everyone deserves to have a fair chance. And when when you're sick and healthcare is as expensive as it is, and all of what you need is an expense, ding, 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 you don't have a fair chance. There's no effective resource that kind of supports you and helps you get the quality care that you need. That's the key here, quality care. And therefore be able to have the illness be more stable, hopefully. And well, that would be the goal, is more stability and more energy to give back and give out, and live. It's not about just giving to other people, it's living for yourself too. And yeah, I guess this turned into a bit of a ramble, but um it's not impossible to do with without being what is it what was I going to say? It's not impossible to do in terms of that being profitable, or at least not draining to finances. I mean, the system is set up to make blood money, like the system is set up to make money off of other people's misfortune, practically. Well, in truth, it is, and it doesn't need to be. It could be the opposite. It could be making money from people's growth. So, yeah, but I mean, that would take an entire overhaul. Will that ever happen? I don't know. That would be great. Maybe not in our lifetime, but chronically ill and disabled people deserve a chance. And because we're human beings, and if the condition is treatable, bottom line here, if there are things that are treatable, that are not being treated, which is very common here in Canada, the superficial symptoms are treated and that's it. Painkiller, and severe infection, that's obvious, antibiotic, sleeping pill, like just, and then crisis care, like if someone is already in a crisis, a lot of the times the system waits until you're in a crisis to do something more than that. And it's not enough. If the care were not such crappy quality, people would not have such crappy quality of life. And this is why people who can buy better quality healthcare have better quality of life. That's it.